All right, omega-3s. You ready to dive in? We hear it constantly, right? Eat your fish, take your fish oil, but what's the real deal with these omega-3s? We're going way deeper than the fish oil aisle today into some serious research papers, the real nitty-gritty.
Yeah, we're going to uncover the hows, the whys, all that good stuff. So you've heard of EPA and DHA, right? The big players in the omega-3
No,
world.
absolutely. Everyone throws those letters around.
But they're not interchangeable. They actually do different things in the body, which is super important to understand.
So it's not as simple as just omega-3s are good. There's nuance here, which I love.
100%. There's this concept. It's called the omega-3 index. I think you'll find this interesting.
Okay, yeah, I read about that in a nutrients journal recently. It's like how much EPA and DHA is actually in your cells, right? Like a measuring stick.
Exactly. Instead of just, oh, I ate salmon on Tuesday. This gives a much clearer picture of what's going on.
Makes total sense. But then I was looking at this other study. It was in the Journal of Atherosclerosis and Thrombosis, big name, but anyway. They were saying people might need a higher dose of omega-3s than what we usually get from food to really see the heart benefits, especially, and this is key, if they're eating, a typical Western diet.
Yeah, and that's a really important point because there was this one study, the Reduce IT trial. They used a way higher dose of EPA. We're talking 4 grams a day. And they saw some pretty impressive results, especially for people who are already at risk for heart problems.
So it's not just about sprinkling some flaxseed on my yogurt and calling it a day.
It's more nuanced than that, for sure. The dosage matters and how it interacts with your overall diet. That all comes into play.
Fascinating. Okay, so you've got our heart health angle. Now, what about the brain? Everyone's always going on about omega-3s for brain power.
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't want a supercharged brain, right?
Right.
Well, this is where DHA really takes center stage. I was just reading this really comprehensive review in Nutrients, and they were talking about how DHA is like a key component of our brain cell membranes. It actually affects how our brain cells talk to each other.
See, that's what I love about this stuff. It's like, yeah, we know these things are good for us, but understanding the how is what really gets me going.
Totally. So DHA, it's crucial for brain structure, brain function, the whole 9 yards.
But, okay, this is where I get a little confused. Isn't there something about the type of omega-3 that matters? Like how well our body actually uses it?
You are so on top of it. That's what we call bioavailability.
Okay, yeah, bioavailability. It's a mouthful.
It is. But basically, it just means how much of what you swallow actually gets to your cells and does the thing, Turns out the form of omega-3, whether it's triglycerides or ethyl esters, that has a big impact on how well it's absorbed.
Hold on, you're saying that even if I'm taking my fancy fish oil capsules, my body might not be utilizing all those omega-3s.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's a real possibility.
Yeah.
I was reading this article in Annual Reviews, and they were saying that even what else you're eating, like how much fat is in your meal, can affect how much omega-3 you actually absorb.
Wow. It's like every little thing matters. Okay, so we've covered the heart, we've covered the brain. What else is there?
Get this, there's now research connecting omega-3s to gut health.
Wait, what? Our gut? I thought that was all about like probiotics and fiber and all that.
There's so much we're still learning about the gut, but this study in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences really caught my eye. They looked at how different types of fats, omega-3s included, can actually change the balance of bacteria in our gut.
Now, remind me why that matters again. I know we talk about the gut microbiome a lot on the show, but...
Right, so that's the collection of all the bacteria, the good and the bad, living in your gut. And when it's healthy, it can influence everything. Digestion, immunity, even your mood. And research suggests that what we eat, including those omega-3s, could be shaping that environment.
That is wild.
Right. It blows my mind how interconnected everything is in the body. But, okay, back to this gut microbiome thing. Some omega-3s, they can actually help those good bacteria in our gut to thrive.
Oh, interesting.
And then it's those good bacteria that produce the short-chain fatty acids. You've probably heard of those, like butyrate.
Okay, yes, short-chain fatty acids. Break that down for me. Why are they so important, and how do they tie back to the omega-3s?
So the short-chain fatty acids, they're like the VIP fuel for the cells that line your gut.
Gotcha.
And they're super important for, maintaining that strong gut barrier.
Which is like, what, keeping everything where it's supposed to be?
Exactly. It's like a tightly woven fabric. Nothing gets through that shouldn't. And not just that, but they help keep inflammation down all over your body.
So more omega-3s means more of those good gut bacteria, means a stronger gut barrier, less inflammation, like a domino effect.
You got it. And remember how we were talking about inflammation before? How it's a factor in so many chronic diseases, heart disease, even some cancers? This is where it all connects.
Right, right. Which, speaking of cancer, you mentioned earlier that the research on omega-3s and cancer is kind of a mixed bag. What's the takeaway for people listening who are trying to make sense of all this?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to digest. Some studies, they suggest that more omega-3s in your diet could mean a lower risk of certain cancers. But the evidence isn't totally clear-cut yet. There was this annual reviews article. They did a really good job summarizing everything. And it seems like the real key is the balance of fats in your diet.
Balance. There's that word again. It's never as simple as eat this, not that, is it?
It rarely is. This other study from Biomed Pharmacother, this one really got me thinking. They were looking at the ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s in our diet.
Okay, before we get into that, can we back up for a second? I was looking at this paper. It was from Marine Drugs, and I wanted to ask you about this term, specialized pro-resolving lipid mediators.
Oh yeah, those are a mouthful.
What are those? I feel like I need a PhD just to understand the name.
I know, right? They sound way more complicated than they really are.
Mm.
Basically, SKMs, that's what we call them for short, they're like your body's peacekeepers when it comes to inflammation. They stop it from getting out of control and help your body heal.
Okay.
And guess what? They're made from those awesome omega-3s we've been talking about.
Uh-huh. So it really all comes back to inflammation. Omega-3s help make those SPMs, which put the brakes on inflammation, and that could be why they might help protect against those chronic diseases we keep mentioning.
You're getting it. It's all connected.
That's so cool. Okay, back to this omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. What's the ideal balance, and why is it so important?
So researchers believe that our ancestors, way back in the hunter-gatherer days, they probably had a ratio closer to 1.1.
1 to 1, okay.
But now, the modern Western diet, it's totally out of whack. We're talking maybe 15.1, maybe even 20.1 in favor of omega-6s.
Wow, that's a massive difference. What's so bad about that skewed ratio?
Well, remember all that talk about inflammation?
Yeah.
Omega-6s, they're not bad in themselves. They're essential fats. We need them.
Yeah.
But when they're way too many compared to omega-3s, that's when they can start contributing to problems.
So it's not about ditching omega-6s entirely. It's about getting them back in balance with omega-3s.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot where your body's happiest. And that's where our food choices come in.
All right, so how do we do that? What are some things people can actually do to improve their omega-6 to omega-3 ratio?
Well, a great starting point is upping those omega-3s.
Yeah.
Get more fatty fish on your plate, salmon, mackerel, sardines.
Yeah, those are the classics. But what about people who don't love fish? Any options for the plant-based eaters out there?
Absolutely. You've got flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts. Those are all good sources of ALA.
ALA, that's the plant-based form, right. But didn't you say our bodies aren't that great at converting ALA to the EPA and DHA that we really need?
True, we're not as efficient at converting it, but it's still beneficial to include those ALA-rich foods. Some research even suggests that just upping your ALA, especially if you're cutting back on omega-6s at the same time, can still have positive effects.
Okay, so two-pronged approach. Boost those omega-3s and reduce omega-6s. What are some ways to cut back on those?
A lot of it comes down to the oils we're using. Those vegetable oils, like corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, they're very high in omega-6s.
So what should we be using instead? So if I'm hearing you right, swapping out some of those cooking oils could make a real difference in getting that ratio back in check. What are some good swaps people can make?
Absolutely. Olive oil is a great one. Heart-healthy, monounsaturated fats. You can use it for almost anything.
Okay, olive oil, classic.
Then there's avocado oil, another good one, especially if you need something that can handle a bit more heat.
Right, right, because not all oils are good for high heat cooking.
Exactly. For those times when you're really cranking up the heat, coconut oil and ghee, those are your friends. They're much more stable at higher temperatures.
Okay, this is all making sense. So more fish, more plant-based omega-3s, and watch those oils. It's about making those little shifts to get that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio back in balance.
You got it. It doesn't have to be about being perfect. Just start making those small changes day by day, and those healthy habits, they really add up.
This has been so eye-opening. We went way beyond just omega-3s are good for you and got into all the fascinating details. I feel like I've got a much better grasp on this now.
It's been great diving into this with you. There's always so much to learn about how our bodies work. It's amazing.
It really is. So before we wrap up, any final thoughts for our listeners? Something to keep in mind as they, go on their omega-3 journey.
Here's something I was thinking about. We talked a lot about how the modern diet has messed with our omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. But what about all the other stuff that comes with modern life? Stress, not enough sleep, all the toxins in our environment. Could those things be affecting how well our bodies use omega-3s too?
That is a really interesting question. It makes you think it's not just about what we're eating, it's about our whole environment, inside and out. Well, there you have it, everyone. Another deep dive complete. Keep those brains buzzing, and we'll see